Welcome to Miller Online Tutorial. Now before us is this question under bearing, and it says P, Q and R are three villages as shown in the diagram. Now here's the diagram. Now here you have P, Q and R, while this is the north. Okay, now we are told to write down the bearing of Q from P, the bearing of P from Q, and the bearing of R from P, then D, the bearing of P from R. Alright, first of all, you need to understand that bearing is just the angular distance of a point from another reference point. Okay, now from that definition, now let us consider one or two things here that will help us simplify the question. Now, first of all these points located here, what we need to do first is to draw our four cardinal points there first, and that will help us to ascertain our north, our south, our east and west. Okay, so let's come from here first. Okay, now our P is here. Let me just clean this and sketch this down, and make sure it's absolutely straight, although I'm using a free sketch drawing. So from here also just draw down and ensure it's straight. Okay, now take note that here is our P. Now with this here, now we've drawn our north. This is our north, south, then this is our south, this is our south for Q, and this is our what? North. Okay, now let us start. Now the bearing of Q from P, what this implies is, what is the angular distance that Q formed from the reference point P? Now this is Q here. Now what is the angular distance? So let us see, this is our P. Now this is Q. Now if you look at this, from the north of P, okay, through the line that intercept or meets at Q, you see it is what? 55. Sorry, this one should have 0 here. You can see it's 55. So which means that the bearing of Q from P, which means the angular distance that Q formed from P is what? 0.55 degree. Okay, now that being said, now let us look at the bearing of P from Q, which implies, now what is the angular distance of P formed from the reference point Q. Alright, so this is P here, and this is the reference point at which we are calculating our distance, angular distance of P from. Okay, now let us look at it. Now this is the line that intercepts coming from, so this is P from Q. So we need to look at the angle that P formed from Q. So we can take our angle from the north of Q. Now draw it clockwise down through to the line from P. Okay, so and we know that from our cardinal point here is 90, because this line here forms 90 degree, another 90 degree is here. Now the question now, this is not complete 90, so how then do you find this angle? Now looking at this side again, from this point, this line, now you get to see that we have angle 0.55 degree. Now this angle in particular is alternate to this angle here, so here we have 0.55. okay, so at this point we need to calculate. So here, which means the total angle, which is the bearing of P, the total angle, the angular distance of P from P will now be 90 plus 90 plus 55. So here we have 180 plus 55. Now this will give us 5, this will give us 3, and this will give us 2. So here it equals what? 235 degree. Now the next one now says the bearing of R from P. Now this is R, then from P, which means we are actually calculating the angular distance of R from what? P. So here we take the angle again from the north of P. You now draw it clockwise through to the line that meets with what? R. Okay, so which is, here we have 90 already. Okay, because this angle is 90. Now this angle also is 90. Let me clean P. Take note, this is P here. Okay, now it's remaining this angle here. So how then do we calculate this angle? Now take note that from the north of P, anti-clockwise moving through southwest of R, you get to see that it is what? 140. Okay, and if you take a look at this straight line from the north through to the south, it is what? A straight line, which means it is what? 180 degree. Now if you have to subtract that, subtract 140 from 180, so the remaining part here becomes what? 40. So which implies that the bearing of R from P will now be 90 plus 90 plus 40, which is what? 90, that will be 180 plus 40, which will give us 0. This is a 2 and 2. Here we have 220. Alright, now here we now, the last one here says the bearing of P from R. The bearing of, this is our P from R. So the angle here is what we're looking for. Alright, if you understood what I did for A, B, and C, drop your answer for D. Thank you, and God bless you.